Hello. This presentation on professionalization is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce's Commercial Law Development Program Series, specifically funded by the U.S. Department of State Middle East Partnership Initiative, or MEPI. The professionalization concept uses the model of the Department of Defense's Defense Acquisition Workforce and specifically highlights the contracting career field. My name is John Meeuwissen, and I am a retired professor from Defense Acquisition University, or DAU, having served there from 2009 to early 2020. Previously, I served in the United States Air Force for 22 plus years, followed by 16 plus years as a Department of Defense support contractor, prior to my assignment of 11 years at DAU. I am a Level 3 Certified Program Manager, and while at DAU, I developed and taught courses in the International Acquisition Center. I would like to address the subject of professionalization using DoD's Defense Acquisition Workforce model by first addressing the definition and characteristics of professionalization, and then looking at the following specifics of our Defense Acquisition Workforce. That is, DAWIA, or the Defense Acquisition Workforce Improvement Act, its background and direction, legal foundations, quality and effectiveness of the defense acquisition workforce, approved training, certification requirements, and the contracting career field example. So let's first look at a definition of professionalization. Simply stated, it describes education, training, and other activities that transform a worker into a professional. Or it can be looked at as the social processes by which an occupation becomes a profession. We look at the professionalization characteristics. There's some things that stand out. First of all, it has a clearly defined membership. Again, using my model, that is, the Defense Acquisition Workforce. It also has the characteristic of a distinct body of knowledge. That is, it has laws, regulations, and directives. It also has a characteristic of extended practical and continuous training. Therefore, it's comprised and based on education, training, and continuous training. It also has the characteristic of a professional career assurance. In other words, once achieving certain certification levels, corresponding assignments are then allowed. And finally, in a characteristics, as an acquisition professional, decisions are not based on self-interest, but rather ethical standards and mandatory training are followed. So if we look at the background of our defense acquisition workforce, first of all, after World War II and during the Cold War, acquisition workforce professional capabilities did not keep up with new complexity of weapons procurement at that time. A fundamental change in the nature of U.S. weapons emerged. They were no longer simply weapons. They had become complex weapons systems, incorporating multiple technologies and bringing vast integration challenges. The government's role was put all this together, but the workforce was not fully prepared for these new duties. There were numerous management failures and scandals, and plagued usually in the 1980s timeframe. Major cost overruns, schedule slippages, and performance shortfalls made U.S. headlines. In 1988, a scandal known as Operation Illwind triggered the largest investigation of federal acquisition in history. The Federal Bureau of Investigation searched a number of defense contractor facilities and investigated several high-ranking DoD officials based on allegations of fraud and bribery. More than 60 convictions resulted from these investigations. Spending became even more a scandal when the Project on Government Oversight organization reported that the Pentagon had vastly overpaid for a wide variety of items, most notoriously paying $435 for a hammer, $600 for a toilet seat, and $7,000 for an aircraft coffee maker. These scandals dramatically highlighted not only shocking financial impacts, but the broad lack of trained and professional government oversight capability. Congress then took an active role with a congressional report titled "The Quality and Professionalism of the Acquisition Workforce," was issued in May 1990 and had far-reaching influence on the acquisition workforce. The report concluded that DoD was deficient in developing a high-quality professional workforce. It also stated that the existing education and training structure lacked the authority, resources, and support of the defense components, or the military services. Ultimately, the Congress found that DoD components were inconsistent in following the laws and directives passed in the 1980s, and that Congress was adamant that a comprehensive program based in statute was essential. The result was creating a law called the Defense Acquisition Workforce Improvement Act, commonly referred to as DAWIA. Acquisition reformers in the U.S. Congress formally called for the creation of a Professional Acquisition Corps. The key element of that effort was this landmark law called DAWIA. The bill passed by a vote of 413 to 1. Let me now describe the requirements established by that law. There was basic direction involved. First and foremost, this law gave us the legal foundation for planning, management, and development of the acquisition workforce. By making the DAWIA a law, no direction or requirement could be overlooked or lost in the normal succession of elected officials, political appointees, or transitory military flag officers. The overarching purpose was to improve the quality and effectiveness of the acquisition workforce. DAU, Defense Acquisition University, was established as the sole school responsible for training the acquisition workforce. It has a legal charter and thus cannot become anyone's organizational schoolhouse. It has to belong to and serve everyone. Authority, budget, and policy support is centralized and guaranteed. DAWIA gave us a framework to use in measuring, managing, and assessing career field capabilities with a standardized certification process. I'll talk later about specifically the contracting career field. If we look at the foundation, as stated, DAWIA says the Secretary of Defense shall designate in regulations those positions in the Department of Defense that are acquisition positions and shall include at a minimum all acquisition-related positions in the following areas. So here we have program management, systems planning, research, development, engineering and testing, procurement including contracting, which we will talk about specifically, industrial property management, logistics, quality control and assurance, manufacturing and production, the business aspect of business, cost estimating, financial management and auditing, education, training and career development, construction, as well as joint development and production, and this is of systems, weapon systems, with other government agencies and even foreign countries. So the legal foundation is there, but in addition, the quality and effectiveness of how the workforce fits into this is important to realize. In this particular chart, if we look at the acquisition workforce comprising, this shifts, but in this example here, 156,000 to, at any time, it could go as high as 165, 168,000 people. So there's a lot of different aspects to this. We have level 1 and level 2 in the second column from the left. Level 2 and 3 are mid-range management, if you will. If you look on the far right, this is equivalent to GS 5 to 11 or so at level 1 and 2, or officer for the O, 1 to 3, so lieutenant to captain, if you will. Level 2 and 3, 0405, so majors, lieutenant colonels, GS 12 to 14. Level 3 certification, one would normally have it at, again, the GS 1415 or lieutenant colonel to colonel in the officer ranks. Our acquisition corps, and this is under people, is a select group, roughly around 26 to 30,000. The career growth is envisioned that folks at the lower ranges, the greater number, would be taking classes, etc., and continuous training to grow up to key leadership positions in the pyramid. Positions on the right, we see that as critical acquisition positions. Some programs are designated at having critical acquisition positions because of the level of involvement of the weapon system, the cost of the weapon system, the jointness of it, possibly with other services. And key leaders, if you will, are at the GS 15 SES level, officers 6, 7, we're talking about flag officers or general officers. So you see a quality and effectiveness portion as we look at how the workforce is comprised and how the progression is envisioned for these individuals. The next item I want to look at is approved training. This is where Defense Acquisition University fits in with the standard of looking at training, and this is adult education, continuous training, so therefore shorter phased classroom times or online learning or a hybrid concept. The first part is foundational learning, what you learn in the classroom or online courses. Secondly, workflow learning, what knowledge can be shared, but more importantly, what job support tools are available to you, the individual working in the workforce, something that you can effectively look at and get your hands on as the need is there. Finally, the performance learning. This was involved with mission assistance or workshops. How does the organization work together? You can see this on the bottom of this particular chart as it looks at gaining acquisition knowledge and skills. What are the basics? Certification and continuous learning requirements. In the middle, acquisition resources to help you on the job as needed, when you need it, everyday tasks at work. Where can I get this information rather than wait for another class that may be 3 or 4 months or another online course to take? What can I access today as I need these resources? And again, as I mentioned to the far right, assistance tailored to your organization's need. Is the organization, is the office, is the group, your particular work group, are you in need of a particular emphasis, whether it be consulting, executive coaching, customized workshops, tailored to not only the organization, but what phase of the acquisition process is my weapon system in at this time? It could even be as a program is basically finished, declining, discontinued. There is a process related to put that to use. So again, there is an approved training that's recommended. In this particular chart, I want to look at the certification requirements. I've used some of this terminology as we've gone through this presentation so far, but certification is important because it describes a process through which the Department of Defense components, these are all the military services, determine that an individual meets the mandatory standards. In other words, they have experience, they have basic education, and they have the training, again, established for a career level in an acquisition career field. We talked about this earlier in the pyramid chart, if you remember that. We have level 1, which is basically entry, level 2, the intermediate level or mid-level management, and level 3, the senior positions. We'll look at this also with the sample of our contracting example, if you will, here, which may make a little bit more sense as we look at this. The important thing about the certification requirements, it establishes a path, if you will, here, that gets an individual not only having that education and experience part, but the requisite training that is really needed to carry out what is their job function at this time. So if we look at the contracting example, experience goes back with the level 1, 2, and 3. Roughly, level 1, you have to have at least a year of acquisition experience and the requisite courses. Level 2, have to have 2 years of acquisition experience. Level 3, 4 years and plus years of acquisition experience. Again, a caution here is that most individuals want to speed through this and see how much can I get done in my first year or 2 years. The emphasis should not be there, but what is really needed for my acquisition position and my acquisition job function, if you will, at this stage, rather than I want to be level 3 as quick as I can. It has to make sense. But again, the emphasis here is that we do have continuous training, because those things that are taught at any certain point in time, if you're trying to speed through it and do that in 2, 3, or 4 years, you will forget it when you become that mid-manager. So therefore, the continuous training is important. Education requirements for contracting now: bachelor's degree, any field of study, plus at least 24 semester hours in accounting, law, business, finance, contracts, purchasing, economics, industrial management, marketing, quantitative methods, or organization and management. Again, a broad range. If we remember back to the chart showing our various DAWIA functions, if you will, and the various career fields, a bachelor's degree, any field of study, plus at least 24 semester hours is a pretty broad approach. But again, we have to be broad in making this professionalization decision, because you have to have that as well as what is my current and continuous training to do my specific job as these individuals move from various program management offices or different functions in the acquisition career fields. The training, again, the contracting example. For level 1 training at this stage requires 29 days in the classroom. This is split out over various amounts of courses. I've summed this up just to make it easier as to the complexity, if you will, or at least the breadth of what this entails. These 29 days are usually split up in 1-week classes. Those will be 5 days. There's also 51 hours online. These are online courses, plus 4 outside modules. These are, again, online courses, but outside of contracting courses, if you will, but they engage in other parts of the continuous training aspect. It could be more management related. Level 2, roughly the same, 28.5 days in the classroom, 72 hours online, and 3 modules. Again, those 3 modules, and these are different for the various career fields, but those 3 modules are things that can be taken by an individual to show that they have progressed through a certain amount of training in over and above courses. Level 3, again, 9.5 roughly plus days in the classroom, 35 hours online, and 1 outside module. Now, that outside module could very well be the Harvard Business School case study. Again, this is an online access, but it's something outside of specifically contracting. Again, it's to show the professionalization aspect or the overall aspect of individuals progressing through level 1, 2, and 3. So with that in mind, I'm looking at what now are the conclusions that can be drawn from this approach. And again, using the defense acquisition workforce as our model. The Department of Defense has worked hard to create a foundational and structural concept to enhance the elements of professionalism for the acquisition workforce. This is shown in a track, if you will, a buy-in by supervisors, a concept that is there to stay since it has, second bullet, a key cornerstone of that effort, that DAWIA effort, remains effective today, 30 years later. That's because it's in law, it's there and stated, it's approved by and condoned through the various Department of Defense components, the services, as well as the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Certification rates are higher than ever and continuously emphasized by our DoD leadership. As an example, in 2002, so roughly 12, 13 years after the law went into effect, there was about a 40%, 12 years, 40% certification rate. In 2016, that went up to 80%. This is across our entire defense acquisition workforce. Remember that high number? Somewhere between 150, 165,000 individuals, depending on what fiscal year, etc. So even today, we are closer to that 90% number in certification rates. So people, individuals, as well as leadership, are buying into the certification aspects to make these career fields professionalized. And finally, our DAWIA has positive impact on acquisition outcomes. Things are being bought, weapon systems are being bought better, decisions are being made smarter, and overall, everything within the defense acquisition workforce and DAWIA is often benchmarked not only by U.S. companies, but also foreign partners. We've had, you've remembered now, I said Defense Acquisition University has been around as the go-to schoolhouse, if you will, for the defense acquisition workforce. Well, we've had corporate universities by major contractors as well as major industries that have grown, and they use the DAU principle as a benchmark to make sure that their individual training of their individuals and workforces do the best or professionalize those individuals. I want to thank you for listening to this particular presentation, and if you have any questions, certainly you can reach out to myself. I will make sure that my information is available and accessible to everyone. Thank you very much.